Good morning, and welcome back to Woman's Word. The Woman's Word today is Know Yourself the Ugly. I'm going to conclude the three-part series about knowing yourself. I've actually talked about knowing yourself the good, and then we talked about knowing yourself the bad. And today we're going to look at the ugly. We want to know everything about ourselves. It's important that we just look intently at ourselves. We take a fearless and honest look at ourselves in order to move forward, to progress, to fulfill our goals, fulfill our purpose in life. And so what I want to look at today is that which is ugly within us. We started with the good because I need to know that I've been made in the image of God. I need to know that He says that I'm fearfully and wonderfully made. I'm beautifully and purposefully made. That He pronounced mankind as good, even very good, on that sixth day of creation. And so there is good in me because it is of God. However, through my own sin, there has grown bad in me. So the bad and the good coexist. And I've got to really take a good look at that so that I can improve and I can grow and I can change. I can become the person I really want to be. But I also have to look at the ugly. And the ugly is going to be wounds within my soul. And those soul wounds come from offenses against me. It means that someone else has hurt me. Someone else has offended me, or oftentimes we consider it they sinned against me. And as they've done something unto me, it actually damages my soul. And remember, the soul is going to include my thoughts, my emotions, and my will, which we connect with our gut. And so some part of me has been damaged now. Probably my heart. Usually it's my heart. But even my thinking can be damaged by abuse. It can be damaged by being mistreated and betrayed. Certain things can happen to us that can shift our brains in a terrible way, causing us to create defense mechanisms and all types of other things in our thinking, which didn't come from us, didn't come from our own sin, or us being outside of the will of God, or from a character flaw or weakness. It came from something that happened to us. Here's the challenge, though. Even though it's not my fault, it now becomes my responsibility to address the woundedness in my own soul. For example, we could be driving in a car and get into a car accident, and the other driver could just speed away. They just leave us there at the scene, wounded. Now, it is that person's fault that we're wounded. But if I want to be healed, I'm going to have to take the responsibility to make sure that I get the help, the medical attention that I need in order for my body to get healed. I can be healthy and whole again. The same thing is true about my soul. The person who wounded me may not have the same negative effects that I have from being wounded. They can go on with their life and be healthy and happy in certain areas. But me, I'll be, oozing in pain. When we look at this metaphor, it's like those soul wounds are just like cuts in our flesh that if they're left untreated, they start to get infected and they just ooze and it's very disgusting. Our souls can look the same way in a spiritual sense, where they're just wounded from this offense and this hurt and this betrayal and this sin against us. All these things they're like cuts in our hearts. They're like gashes in our brain and our thinking, and they damage our will so much so that there are times when you can be so wounded where you even lose the will to live. And if you don't have the will to live, you don't have that unction in you to press yourself forward and press your way forward, you can literally, not just emotionally or spiritually, you can literally die. And so it is very important that our soul wounds are healed. And so what we've got to do is find out, how do we do this? Now, this is a scripture that I quote all the time. It's in Jeremiah chapter 17. It says, the heart is deceptive above all things and mortally sick. Now, usually I stop there, but it says that God himself searches the heart and repays us back all those things due us according to our deeds. Later on, Jeremiah says in the same chapter, heal me and I will be healed. Cleanse me and I'll be cleansed. And it's because it's God who can address our hearts. We can't address the wounds in our soul. Sometimes because we'll build up such defense mechanisms and that deceitfulness of our own hearts that we won't even really look at the pain that's been caused to us, the trauma that we've been through. We a lot of times we don't even want to face it. We don't even want to think about it. We prefer to pretend that it didn't happen or just move on with our lives. And all the while, our souls are just wounded. And anything that's wounded and left untreated is going to continue to decrease in health. So our souls become less and less healthy over time if we're not actually dealing with our soul wounds. Now, how can I identify that I have soul wounds? Well, last time we spoke 2 days ago, I was sharing the bad. The bad is going to be the character flaws and weaknesses and sins that I exhibit, the things that I do that I know I ought not do, things that are generally out of character for me, but I still at certain times may behave in that way. That sin, that bad in us, is going to come from usually a place of woundedness, where we have taken on a new type of thinking, or we've given up, in that area of will, like I was talking about. I don't want to fight this anymore. I'm tired of it. Or we start to defend ourselves, and as we do, we take on anger or wrath or all these types of things. They come out of a place of woundedness. And so if I start to see myself malfunctioning, remember I told you, we're made good, but if I'm behaving poorly, then I'm malfunctioning. And as I'm malfunctioning, that is a sign that there's something going on in my soul. So I've got to take an inventory of myself. I got to pull back and go, hey, what's going on with me? Why did I say that? Why did I get so upset? Why did I go out of my way to do something that was actually destructive to me and to people around me? Why am I sabotaging myself? Because there are times when we do that. We will sabotage ourselves. We know that we should go this way, but we go that way anyway. Just putting ourselves on a terrible collision course for all types of destructive things. And so when we start to see those behaviors in ourselves, we've got to pause, stop, spend some time paying attention to what's going on in our souls. Look back at what has happened over the past few years, not just days, weeks, and months, years. What have I endured? What has happened to me? And a lot of times we'll say, oh, I'm fine, I'm good, I'm moving on, I'm doing what I need to do. But our soul is really hurting. And so we've got to pause and take a real look at that. And it's going to take some vulnerability. Maybe not being vulnerable to the people who hurt us, but being vulnerable in our time with ourselves and being vulnerable to God. I'm going to have to be honest. That hurt. They hurt me. I did care. It wasn't okay. See, those type of truths will help me to identify the woundedness in myself. As long as I mask it with a lie, I'm fine, I can handle it, I'm moving on, I don't even care about that. As long as I'm masking it with a lie, I cannot get the woundedness treated. It's like going to the doctor's office and the doctor says, okay, tell me what your symptoms, what's going on. And you say, oh, doc, I'm fine, I'm good. He can't treat you. He needs you to be a partner with him in your treatment, to tell him what your symptoms are, tell him what you're experiencing. This is what we do with God, not because God doesn't know, but because when I tell him, this is where it hurts and this is who hurt me, this is why it hurt me. As I start to have that conversation with God, I'm letting him in. I'm inviting him to minister to my heart, to minister to my mind, to minister to my will. I'm letting him into my soul, because God is a gentleman. He's not like the enemy. He's not going to just come in and do what he wants to do. In our souls, he has created us and given us a soul that we can make choices on our own. But when we invite him to come in and to heal us and to fix us, he does do that work. In the very first word in this series, I spoke of God as like a manufacturer. He's the manufacturer, the creator, and we are the creation, like a vehicle, like a car, for example. And if your car started malfunctioning, the manufacturer, sometimes they can have recalls on those. And you bring it back, they'll replace a certain part because they know maybe it was defective or whatever. And they'll do it for free because they know when they first created it, maybe it was defective. But you've got to take your car to the manufacturer. They're not going to come find you at your house in order to replace, the engine or the transmission or carburetor or whatever. They're not going to find you to do that. You got to take your car in to get the work done. Same thing is true with our own souls. I got to take my soul back to the manufacturer. And I got to say, it's malfunctioning. I've been wounded. I've been hurt. I need you to heal me. I need you to fix me. And this is not a quick fix. We talked about this some time ago. Our society wants everything right now. But relationship with God doesn't work that way. We are not able to get the healing in 2 seconds, especially if it came from trauma or betrayal or abuse in a relationship that was over a long period of time in our lives. That type of pain is going to have to be healed over time. God will minister to the original wound but then it'll heal over time. It's like if you had a surgery, you would go in on a certain date for the surgery, but then when you're released, the doctor would give you instructions for that period of recovery, for that healing, so that your body can heal itself and can respond well to what he did in the surgery. Same thing is true with our souls. God will minister to our souls like a surgery. It's like spiritually a surgery, but there is a recovery period. You know, we got to get that ministry, which is why it's important that we allow ourselves to grieve. We got to allow ourselves to mourn. If we're in relationships and maybe someone walks away from us, they abandon us, they leave us, they make a different choice. We got to spend some time alone unto God, and remembering and allowing ourselves to heal and recover before we move into another relationship. Otherwise, we're taking the wounds from this one straight into the other one. And we're going to negatively affect someone else, and then we'll get wounded all over again. And then that's a wound on top of a wound, and that's just opening up something that was starting to try to heal, which is just very dangerous, and it can be all the more painful. And so we want to deal with our souls in a healthy way. We want to recognize that we are vulnerable. If we weren't vulnerable to hurt, we would not be open to love, to pleasure, to relationship, to relate with people. If people couldn't hurt us, they also couldn't help us. They couldn't love us. They couldn't connect with us. If someone can connect with me to do something positive, something that I think is pleasant, then they can also connect with me to do something that I think is negative, something that I think is painful. It's a two-way street. We can't have one without the other. We are designed as social creatures, interactive, interdependent. We are made to connect with each other. But when we do, sometimes we hurt each other. As that happens, we've got to go back to God and let him heal us. But we can only do it if we're looking at ourselves honestly. We're willing to be honest with God, willing to trust him with the information, with the truth that we have been hurt, that we were vulnerable, that we're not super people, and that when, we're cut, metaphorically speaking, we bleed. We've got to deal with that, and we've got to let him heal us, because we can't heal ourselves. What we do is we create horrible, horrible defense mechanisms. We build up walls and all these things, which is what leads to the bad. It's like a Band-Aid fix over a oozing, infected sore. We don't want to do that. We want to actually get it healed. We want to get the medicine so that it doesn't spread throughout the rest of our souls, because that's what will happen. Wound in my heart will spread right to my mind and into my will, and eventually I'm just completely malfunctioning at this point. And now I'm in sin, because I'm operating out of that woundedness, as opposed to allowing myself to get right, to get healed. And so I hope that blessed you. I know that it's really challenging to look at those things in ourselves. It's challenging for me, just like it is for you. But the Lord encourages us to know that he will be there with us as we walk through it. And you want to know this: if you want to be the person God designed you, if you want to be the person you want to be, the person, the ideal person you see, that person you can be, you've got to deal with your own sin, the bad. You've got to deal also with your own woundedness, the ugly. And then you can get to the good. You can continually move toward the good. It's not about arriving. It's about always walking. It's about a process. We want to continue in the process of improving, of getting better, becoming better people. That's what we want to do. And addressing our woundedness is the most important way to do that. And so I hope that encouraged you. I hope that blessed you. And it's certainly even now blessing me, because it's something we have to do regularly. This is not a one-stop shop. It's a lifestyle that you would address your woundedness, that you might be healed. I bless God for it. He's already provided the way for our healing. All you got to do is receive it. And I hope to talk to you again soon. And that when I do, you have addressed some of the woundedness in your soul, but I know that I will have done the same. Be blessed.